All right, commissioners, we are going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Commissioners, I want to just kind of, we're going to call this meeting to order. So I'll ask everyone to find a spot to sit. So commissioners, we have a full agenda today, and I'm going to switch things around just a little bit. But we have a number of presentations. I have a couple proclamations I'd like to read, and then we have a number of items that we need to act on this morning. And then we do have 4 executive sessions after this. So immediately following, I'm going to ask all of you to go right downstairs so we can get started, so that we can make sure that we get through everything. So that's the lineup for this morning. And we canceled legislative meeting because of all of the executive sessions. Okay? So we're going to start today by inviting, we have a guest with us who's here in town, Dr. Sam Semberis, who is the founder of the Housing First model, and he is doing a number of presentations and having conversations in our community about his work. And so I'm going to actually start our morning off with his presentation, and then I have a proclamation that I'll read after that for Homelessness Awareness Week, and then we'll get moving forward. So, Doctor, if you want to come forward, and you can come right up here, make sure that microphone is on. Welcome to Grand Rapids. Welcome to our City Commission meeting.
Good morning, Mayor Bliss and members of the council. Thanks very much for inviting me and for the opportunity to speak with you about homelessness. I've come to really offer a particular approach to a small group of people among the homeless. Homelessness is a complex problem, but for the most part, people who are homeless for a short period of time, usually 4 to 6 weeks because of an economic crisis or family illness, any number of reasons, but they bounce back. The group of people that I'm talking to you about is the group, the 20% that doesn't bounce back, the group that we have come to call the chronically homeless. People that end up staying homeless for a long period of time are often homeless in public spaces, downtown, parks, wherever they can find to stay safe for the evening, and end up on the streets or in and out of shelters for years at times. This is the group that I'm most concerned about. It's also the group, strangely, even though it represents a small fraction of the homeless, that in public's mind, this is homelessness. They are the most visible, and when we think about people who are homeless, it's the solitary figure on the street that often comes to mind. This group of people has brought a lot of attention to themselves recently because there's an effort to end chronic homelessness nationally. It's particularly driven by the effort to end veterans homelessness. That was really a federal mandate and a HUD, a Veterans Administration partnership, identifying a group of veterans that had been homeless, some of them since the Vietnam War. Gulf I, Gulf II, Afghanistan, 76,000 veterans. And the effort to end their homelessness has taught a lot of communities great lessons in how to end chronic homelessness in general. There are basically 2 approaches that cities take to ending chronic homelessness. And there is a division of, and they could be combined, they're not necessarily exclusive. One is the enforcement position, which is enacting laws that prohibit any of the things that people who are homeless do, drinking in public or loitering or trespassing. Those laws have a effective short-term effect, but end up in needless incarceration, repeated hospitalizations, and often a return to the street. Just continues the recidivism of homelessness. The approach that I've worked with and have found to be effective in cities across the country, and also this is the approach that the Veterans Administration used to address chronic homelessness for veterans, is called Housing First. Housing First is really a practical strategy for working with people who are chronically homeless and have complex needs, mental health needs, addiction, health. And the program simply reverses the sequence of services that are typically offered for this population. Rather than requiring treatment for mental health problems or treatment for addiction as a condition for having housing, the housing is offered first, and the treatment follows the person after they're housed. Using this housing first approach actually ends up engaging people that have refused to participate in services before, and in study after study has shown to have an 80% effectiveness in getting people housed and keeping them housed, compared to approaches that do treatment first and then housing, which show results ranging between 30 and 40% effectiveness. Cities of comparable sizes to Grand Rapids, like Salt Lake City, population 175,000, over the 7 or 8 years after adopting a housing first strategy, have reduced chronic homelessness by 92%. The Veterans Administration 3 years ago adopted Housing First to address chronic homelessness in veterans, and those 76,000 veterans, 56% reduction in veterans homelessness. These are studies that are documented on the United States Interagency Council on the Homeless website, and they have also shown a savings in the offset from the frequent incarceration or hospital use days. People who are housed are no longer using acute care services, and so there's also a cost offset in providing housing first to this population. Those are my comments. I'm happy to take your questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I think it's great timing as we look at kicking off Homelessness Awareness Week. So I'll turn to my colleagues to see if they have some questions. Commissioner, go ahead.
Yes. Could you remind the listening public and the public here that when you will be speaking this week and where?
I'm sorry, remind?
Where you're going to be speaking and when, and so that people who may want to learn more can attend?
I know it's tomorrow evening. I don't know where.
Okay.
Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at Fountain Street Church.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Hopefully people will attend.
So I'll add a couple things. So I was just recently with a number of mayors, and I was able to spend some time with the mayor of Seattle, and we were talking about some of their initiatives around homelessness. And it's interesting, I think they made a number of strides and then started to see their numbers increase again, and now they're taking a fresh look at, okay, what do we need to do? Do you see that often in communities, that there's a pretty strong push for housing first, and then as the numbers start to decrease, there may be a decrease, but then an uptick again? And if so, in cities where there is an uptick in homelessness after they've seen relative decreases, what do you often find that's related to?
After introducing the program, you mean? One of the things the point in time count kind of drives the measure of effectiveness in the program, so that if